Well, let me go to another question I read here. We're talking about mediation in the context of resolving civil disputes, but Maya asks, how can mediation be used to solve community issues or community disputes, homelessness, environmental issues, or all the other issues we have? We have a very it seems like our country is at each other's throats. Americans are fighting each other, and the issues that divide us are being exaggerated more than the issues that unite us. And I don't want to get into the politics of that today, but this is a great question. What about mediation in non-civil litigation areas?
Yeah, I love that, Gary. I feel that way too. In fact, I think that's part of why I became a mediator. Is I'm a peacemaker. And I don't want to sound, I don't mean to sound theological or whatever, but I do really want to find peace in my life, but in my world. And so I've done some really interesting community mediation. I mediated a case one time between neighbors and a local school, and the neighbors were very unhappy. It was a residential school. And the neighbors were very unhappy with how the teenage boys in this residential school were behaving. And I'm the mother of two young men, so I can appreciate sometimes what they, put their parents and their neighborhoods through. And it was a really cool thing. We held it at the school after, like at 6:00 in the evening. We invited everybody, and we had 30 or 40 people, and we had a very kind of orderly setup, and took questions, introduced everybody. And, I don't know that we solved every problem that the school had, but we certainly opened up communication. And I know there were people at the end of that session who felt validated, whose concerns were, the director, the principal of the school listened. And that can be very powerful.
Thank you. What about, so I happen to, know you and the organization, and one of the great things that you all do at USA&M is you and Rob Litz and Mike Geigerman, you have this not-for-profit where you try to address and solve housing issues in the city and the county. And we're especially reading about this now. People are losing jobs, can't pay rent. There's been either through courts closing or judges taking their own action, stopping evictions, or also federal mandates, although I'm not clear about their power over state courts. I'm not really clear, but there's kind of been a stopping. Let's not toss people out of their homes at this time. And then on the other side, and I know I'm talking for a minute, but then on the other side, I also have friends who are landlords who are like, yeah, but do I have to give this apartment or something to someone for free? And they're like, they're collecting unemployment. They're getting checks. They're spending the money. I see the Amazon boxes on their doorstep, and they're not paying me my rent. So, and I'm not saying everybody's like that or trying to paint with too broad a brush. Can you talk to us about that not-for-profit and trying to resolve those issues? Yes.
Actually, this is one of my favorite volunteer projects I've been doing for a couple of years. The St. Louis Mediation Project and some others. Karen Tokar, the professor at WashU School of Law, is very involved in this. There's a program both in the city and in the county where we come in and mediate cases between landlords and tenants who are not represented by lawyers. And, Gary, that is exactly the population you were just referring to, where the landlord says, hey, I have to pay property tax. I have to pay bills too. And many times it's not this uneven bargaining power that you might think. In fact, a lot of the landlords and tenants that come to us, sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're even family members, which is very tough to deal. I mediated a case in which one brother was evicting his brother. those are tough ones where there's a lot of emotion involved, as it, understandably. And so anyway, now in the time of COVID, those programs have continued. And what we try to do is we do it by Zoom, which is definitely a challenge. So all mediations, or 99% of all mediations, have moved to virtual mediations where we're doing them by Zoom. So we have the judge who calls this docket, and we as the mediators and the parties all participate in Zoom mediations. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to address homelessness, because if the person is evicted, many times they will become homeless. So we're trying to work with, where will the tenant go? Is there money out there that maybe could help with the rent that's due? Or if the tenant is going to leave, when are they going to leave? And we find that when we negotiate this eviction, the tenant leaves the property when they say they're going to leave. They leave it in good shape. There's no destruction or trash left behind or something. And we find that the landlord is much more willing to maybe to give the tenant a satisfactory rating or something that helps them get their next place to live. And it's a super fun project, and I can't wait for us to get back together in person because they're more effective in person, but we're doing it the best we can. And in fact, what we're doing now up in North County is we have a couple big apartment complexes that have agreed to mediate pre-litigation. So they haven't filed any eviction, proceeding yet. So they haven't spent the money, on the filing fee. And we're working with the landlord and the tenant to figure out, okay, is there some CARES Act money? Because CARES Act is the name of the federal law that's trying to get some money into tenant and landlord hands to help people from becoming homeless. And, to work with them on how can we solve this problem. So it's been really interesting. I had a tenant who was COVID positive one time, and we talked about how she was feeling and what that meant for the apartment complex. And these are life and death issues.
Yeah. Yeah, Karen Tokars is one of my favorite. I'm a WashU grad, one of my favorite professors and a friend for probably the 20 plus years, 28 years or whatever. I've been out for law school for a while. She's fantastic. I love the combo between the academia and the professionals like you guys at USAM. I know you guys use students. You do a whole thing. It's a whole approach. It's an amazing project.